as Canadians are now aware that the liberal, far-left, Marxist, environmental ideologically driven policies have left Canada vulnerable with no internalized economy. Jagmeet Singh came to the microphone in an effort to become relevant to the conversation again. And what he says exposes two things about him. He has no situational awareness, and he has absolutely no comprehension of how the economy works. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, has imposed tariffs, as many of you are likely aware. Of course, Mark Carney is fallen to pieces. The Liberal government has no idea what they're doing, and they're trying desperately to blame anybody else in the situation. Only the Conservatives said that this could happen, and only the Conservatives are offering solutions that don't focus on attacking the United States of America, but instead focus on building up Canada. Now, Jagmeet Singh, in his effort to become relevant to the conversation, that is come to the microphone to say something, and he thought he was being, tough, and he thought he was being brash and brazen, and I'll leave a link to it down in the description. I'll be candid with you. I took out some of the things that indicate to the opposite of what he was hoping to show us. And it also shows that he has a total lack of comprehension of how this is actually happening. I believe it exposes the blinders that Jagmeet Singh suffers when it comes to the hatred of anyone who doesn't immediately do it his way. Jagmeet's overall theme for his 20 minutes at the microphone was that this is a trade war. He kept saying war, and all of a sudden he no longer wants to have an election. He feels that we should introduce legislation to change. He feels that we should call Parliament back on an emergency basis, introduce legislation that's not even drafted yet on how they can change the EI system. Then he wants that bill to pass through the Senate to the Governor General, get a royal assent, and then he'd be willing to have a election. So basically, he doesn't want to have an election now until, at least by bare minimum next October, which is what he's been doing the whole time. However, he said some things about the crisis that indicate that he has no idea what he's doing, and I don't know who votes for these people.
We already have seen massive job losses in the steel sector.
If you were worried about the steel industry, Jagmeet, you shouldn't have supported the Liberal carbon tax. That is one of the largest reasons that the steel industry so rapidly ran to the United States, where not only is there no carbon tax in their overhead and their operation, but they're getting a excellent corporate tax rate.
And what does that mean for a person? And they lose their job when you're living paycheck to paycheck. That means you could lose your home, not be able to put food on the table for your family, not be able to make your rent, not make your other bills. This is serious.
Canadians have been telling you for years that they can't make their bills, and now that all of those jobs are leaving, think about the idea that you're trying to defend the good jobs, and those are the people that you're talking about, these good union jobs, the car dealers and all the manufacturing. And they are telling you that they are living paycheck to paycheck. Now, how do you expect a person making minimum wage to function? If this is a good job and they're living paycheck to paycheck, that's a very bad sign for the economy, Jagmeet. You and the Liberal Party have raised the average household debt to the point where if they don't have a job to come in, the first thing that's going to happen is half the country, half the province of Ontario is going to default on a lot of borrowed money. So now you got people with no credit rating. Now you got people who are looking for places to live while the costs of rent are through the roof. There's no job and there's no security that the government can offer to take care of that, because they didn't make sure that the Canada First policies of the Conservatives, that they didn't make sure that people didn't have to borrow money left, right, and center ever since the pandemic. The far left policies that you supported 100%, Jagmeet, that you stood in the House of Commons and called anybody that didn't agree with you and Justin Trudeau a phobist, has now come to the rationalization. Here it is right now staring you in the face. One little tiny tariff and the entire country is collapsing. Like, it seems that the Conservatives were right. The country is broken. It's so fragile that one decision by one world leader in another country has impacted the Canada to the point where it could collapse economically. And your thought is that we shouldn't have a new election, that we should be worrying about EI, without it ever occurring to you that we're not going to have the tax base to cover the EI. So now you want to borrow more money, you want to go over budget more, you want to just simply repeat the same policies of the last 9 years that you and the Liberal government have gone ahead and told yourself that nothing bad would happen, and here it is crashing down around us.
We need to create good jobs in Canada. And so that build Canadian, buy Canadian plan at the federal level needs to be there so we can build more and create good jobs in this difficult time.
Create good jobs in Canada when most of the good jobs in Canada have ties to the United States, and they're moving all of their manufacturing and all of their headquarters down there right now.
We need supports our workers first, put in place working, and an election afterwards. And what I'm saying is I want supports our workers done first. An election is secondary to that.
I'm sorry, Jagmeet. Did you say that you're not again going to support the Canadians' desire to have an election? I thought you were running to be Prime Minister of this country. That's what you said just back in January, that you weren't worried about anything that other parties were doing because you're going to be the next Prime Minister of Canada. Well, if you and the NDP are going to have a majority in the House of Commons, you won't need to worry about the other governments, the other parties giving you support for your EI bill. You'll simply be able to make it happen with your NDP majority. I find it bizarre that now all of a sudden you want to stall the election process again, thwarting the needs and the requirements and the wants of the people. The people want an election. They don't want to wait any longer. Donald Trump, with Donald Trump could go on for 4 years. You want to create legislation, put it in place and get it working, as you said. And then you think about having an election. Of course, by that time, you'll say, oh no, poor Jagmeet Singh has a hangnail, so he can't pick a election date today. He doesn't want to stand against Mark Carney with this hangnail going on. Oh no, my Maserati is in the shop, so obviously I can't call for an election this time. I mean, there's no end in sight for the amount of excuses this Jagmeet Singh has for stalling, giving the Canadian people what they want. And if he's so in tune with the people, if he's hearing all of the people, how come he doesn't hear the people say, when they say, I want an election? How come he doesn't hear them say, it's time to get the Liberal government out of there, or any of the number of things that could be said? How come it is that every time I turn around, Jagmeet's talking one thing and doing another? Now he wants to have an emergency parliament, and in no way, shape, or form is he willing to have a no confidence vote until the EI changes. Not only have they been agreed upon, ratified, and put into law by the Governor General, but they have to be up and checks kicking out before he will condescend to giving Canadians the election that they have been wanting for years now.
Could that support for workers mean tax cuts? That's what Poilievre is suggesting, that the support would be in the form of income tax cuts or something of that sort.
Well, no, let's be really clear. He's been very clear about the tax cuts that he wants. He has announced...
What he is saying,
not at all. I reject. He wants tax cuts for millionaires at a time when workers are going to lose their jobs. It's a ridiculous approach. He wants to put tax cuts that are going to help less than 1% of the population. I think it's 0.1%. Based on the government's statistics. And the average income of the people that are benefited from the tax cuts that he's proposing earn mostly $1.4 million or more. So no, that's a ridiculous, that's the capital gains tax cut that he wants to propose. That's what he's come out. That's a specific tax cut that he's talked about that helps a very, very, very small percentage of Canadians that earn mostly over $1.4 million. That's who it mostly helps. That is a ridiculous approach, but it is not what Canadians need right now.
I don't understand who selects these guys. He clearly has no understanding of how the economy works. Jagmeet, I'm going to speak a little bit slowly so that you can try to keep up. Though the way you talk, I doubt very much that you'll be able to keep up. You, in your own words, say that the tax cut is for the wealthiest people. He wants to change the capital gains tax. You seem to ignore the fact that many of these people who are taxed into the 40, 50 percentile, the rich people are the ones that start the businesses, Jagmeet. It's not the people that are, super poor. They're not in the first quintile that are starting businesses. It's in Q4, Q5 that they're starting businesses. So these guys say to themselves, well, I can start the business where Donald Trump is offering me a 15% tax. Of course, you in your mind are thinking that they take their paycheck off their profit line, and they don't do any of that. They take their bonuses out of their profit line. They make sure they get paid as the cost of doing business. You wouldn't understand that because you have no understanding of how the economy functions, obviously. Or you wouldn't be telling yourself that a tax cut for the guys that own all the businesses is a bad idea, or a tax cut for the people who are making profits in Canada where they can run it down to the United States and put it on a truck and bring it back into the country. And if the Canadian government wants to put a tariff on it because it's made in America, well, that's not their problem. They're getting 15% tax rates in the United States, and now they have one of the largest markets open to them without having to worry about employing anybody on the Canadian side of the border, where they don't have to worry about everything being woke, where they don't have to worry about everything being carbon taxed. And you think the solution to that is to put more taxes on industry, more green carbon taxes on manufacturing, and give people who might be who are definitely going to lose their jobs in the auto industry based on the utterances of Donald Trump. You want to give them EI. You don't want to give anybody the idea that the rich people are the ones that are going to be starting a business. And then at the same time, you want to tell yourself that we need to kickstart the economy. I'm wondering, do you feel that the 17-year-old who's still in high school has got the money to start a business? Do you really feel like the person who's 21 years old and just finished university or has the ability to navigate all of the red tape that the liberal NDP far left Marxist ideologies have put into place before they can start even cutting down a tree? In your mind, do you feel that they were just going to snap their fingers and start a business because Jagmeet Singh doesn't like the way Pierre Poilievre has seen the root of the problem? The rich people leaving the country is a huge problem. And by giving them tax breaks, then they can turn around and say, wait a minute, let me stay here. It's okay. I can work with this. Of course, you are so blinded by your Marxist ideology, your desire to be a communist, you don't feel that any of those guys should get a tax break? I mean, how do you propose to kickstart the industry with all the regulations that you required to go through to satisfy your buddy, the Liberal Party, all of the green taxes that they're going to have to pay to satisfy your buddies in the Liberal Party and many of the people in your party? On top of that, you want to be taxing them through the roof when they hire somebody, when they go to train somebody. Well, of course, they won't have the resources to train anybody. And all of these mountain of taxes and all of this mountain of regulation is coming up against Donald Trump, who's saying, I have already used Doge to cut out many of the red tape that's in the federal government, and I am offering you a tax rate of 15%. My doors are wide open. Come on in, settle down. Let's get down to business. By contrast, you feel that the government should be the ones that's driving the business. And I say again, Jagmeet, you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. Only the conservative plan to initiate tax cuts, which is allowing the rich people to invest. Without the investment, the companies don't start, the industry doesn't begin, and it's a downward spiral. It's the law of diminishing returns, Jagmeet. It's not a difficult concept for anybody who's taking the time to study the problem in a neutral manner, who just wants to solve the issue. They don't want to be part of the solution. They just want to solve the problem. They don't have to be held on everybody's shoulders and paraded around the country and talked about like they're some sort of hero. They just want to solve the problem. And the problem that we're facing right now is an economic collapse that will only permit more people to slip down into the United States in an effort to find just a job. So now you've taken more of the tax base out of the country because your refusal to give the wealthiest people in the country a tax break so that they could invest in businesses. It's great. I'm telling you, I am surprised that I'm surprised you aren't already Prime Minister with this level of comprehension and this laser focus on getting to the root of the problem. All right, as everybody's aware, I'm up pretty heavily against C11 and C18. So if you would like, comment, subscribe, share this video with your friends, I would appreciate it. I'm going to wrap here. I'll talk to you next time.